And we are live. What is up, everybody? Aaron the dog back with Lucky Locks for week 3 of the Contenders series here. We're going a night early just because that's how it worked out. And it's probably one where I kind of wanted to see the weigh-ins more than others, just mostly because of the first fight, which we'll talk about here very shortly. Lucky, how you doing tonight?
I can't complain, man. I'm doing all right. There's there's one spot on this card that's interesting to me. I think there's some decent prospects and some decent fights here that we'll get into. So, the way the main event fell apart, I think the main event, if this ends up being the main event come Tuesday night, is downgraded significantly. But I do think there are a couple decent prospects on this card. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this week.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll go ahead and we won't waste too much time here. We'll hop in to the opener. It's a heavyweight fight that was put together very short notice here because they decided to put the Snack Panther and his opponent right into the UFC. They're like, we love these two. So they got their contract without even fighting, and now they're fighting on like a 17, 18 fight card in Australia. Okay, why not? So now Dante Johnson taking on Darian Abbey. Yes, that Darian Abbey of 7-4. What up, Devin? Good to make it. Good to see you here, man. Thanks for making it here for the short notice fight here. But yeah, Darian Abbey. This is really low level stuff here. Dante Johnson, he's 5-0. He's fought at heavyweight at times. He beat James Ford, who was another very highly touted prospect over in Fury, knocked him out. Other than that, faced guys like Ryan Parker, who's 6-7, got knocked out by Deontay Moses in the amateurs and Anthony Pettis' organization, where it was like 2 head kicks thrown in a row, just didn't block the second one. It's kind of a straightforward striker. Has hard hands, but I didn't see anything particularly impressive. Darian Abbey, not saying he's great either, 7-4, obviously. So, he's significantly taller, more of a lengthy, better moving heavyweight. He's been knocked out, though, before. Got knocked out by Timothy Johnson a little over a year ago. Timothy Johnson, obviously a much higher level. The other guys he's beating, though, in the last few, Mark Courier is terrible. Not even finishing him is a red flag. Patrick Martin hadn't fought in 10 years, and he was getting dropped repeatedly in that fight against Patrick Martin. So I guess to look on the other side, you can be like, he's tough, but then he's knocking out Alex Nicholson, which I can't really rate that too highly in 2025. He beat Frank Tate, another old man. He's just fighting like not great levels. He knocked out Lionheart. So our boy Lionheart, he was able to knock out. Honestly, this just comes down to the fact that neither one of these guys should be a minus 250. He was up to Dante Johnson was up to like minus 475 at times. That's just insane. Darian Abbey is the only way to bet this fight if you're going to bet it here. And at this point, Darian Abbey is plus 220, minus 300 for Dante Johnson. I'd still say Darian Abbey's the side. Talk me out of it.
Can't do that, brother. Listen, Abbey is a 7-4 fighter, big guy, 6'6". I believe he's a Kill Cliff guy.
Yes.
He was a pretty successful amateur fighter and made his pro debut against Steve Mowry and lost, which, for the context of this fight is fine. I also lost to Mitchell Seep. That's not great. He has a win over Alec Lorenz, who is also on this card, actually.
Yes.
That's aged pretty decently. He beat Justice Fayu in a bare knuckle MMA fight. He beat the legend Anthony Garrett in kickboxing.
Yes, finished him.
It does not get better than that. Yeah. Has a loss to Tim Johnson. His career has kind of been up, down, left, and right, really. He's currently on a 3-fight win streak. He won the belt in in North Iowa fights and in True Revelation, very prestigious promotion. So, this guy, he's the heavyweight king of Iowa, man. And, he does fight fearlessly in there, and he's pretty quick for a big guy. He deals damage, also pretty hittable. Johnson on the other side, 5-0. He's a Midwestern guy, fought on the Anthony Pettis promotion a few times, and also has a fight in this North Iowa fights promotion. And fought more recently, as you mentioned, on Fury Challenger Series. And, like you say, we aren't going to get to see the weigh-ins before doing the show. I would imagine he'll be, the much smaller guy, right? He fought his last 2 fights at light heavyweight. And even in his heavyweight fights as a pro, he's never weighed more than 219 pounds in these fights, right?
No.
However, as an amateur, he was a little bit bigger. I think he was playing college football. I think maybe D3 football or something like that. And he never weighed in less than 234 as an amateur for a heavyweight. But, back in those days, a couple fights, he was over 260. So he has leaned out quite a bit. But yeah, I think Abby is a little bit more accurate, a little more light on his feet, a little bit quicker with the shots. You mentioned the head kick knockout that Johnson got caught with on the regionals. It didn't look good. And you said it, man. There's only one way to bet this fight, really. You cannot lay this number on Johnson. I got in a little bit early on Darian Abbey. I took a small poke at plus 350. I mean, at that number, it was a pretty easy click, honestly, regardless of what happens,
Right.
I don't know how wrong you could really be on this one, laying, plus 350 on either side. So that's where my head's at for this one.
Yeah, I still think at plus 220, I'm willing to get in on it as well, because I do think that this is just a spot where I could see Darian Abbey honestly like finishing this fight late into the second round. I could see it looking real dicey early, though, for Abbey. He gets dropped, but he does keep going if he doesn't get completely stopped. Well, he's been stopped a couple times as well. I just don't think Deontay Johnson is worthy of that tag. So we'll move on from this fight. This is, it's heavyweight, so it's low level. It's redundant, but yeah. Next fight, I think one of the more interesting fights of the night, 155, Manuel Souza making his Contender Series, long-awaited, I feel like, Contender Series debut here. And Nora Ashe, been a while, but yes, these two will put on a masterclass, referring, of course, to Dante Johnson and Darian Abbey. Yeah, of course. Dada 5,000, 2.0. Christian Perez here, Manuel Souza. I think this fight has a chance to be pretty exciting. I've liked what I've seen out of Christian Perez. He seems like a good striker, exciting, fighter. Has a pretty typical Mexican style to him. Plus 250 over at bet 365. Good look, Mick. Manuel Souza feels like he's been around forever. Even though he hasn't, it's been, over in PFL, over in Bellator as well. Had a pretty good success record up until he came against Archie Coughlin, which no shame there. Very different matchup as well coming into this one. Came off of an okay LFA fight, kind of did what he needed to do. But, to me here, I just feel like the experience and kind of the level of opponents Souza's faced just should, really, he's also the BMF better MMA fighter here. I feel like this is one where, like, we compare the number to last time, and it's a better number here on this fight, and I'm kind of confused as to why. I feel that for Perez, he's going to need to strike. I feel like that's pretty obvious for Souza. Souza can, more than mix it up here. Whether or not he gets a contract, I wouldn't bet on that, because I feel like he could come out here and go pretty boring to a decision. He's done it plenty of times. Did in his last fight. Like, I could see Souza having to fight on Contender Series 2 or 3 times here, because he just keeps kind of showing up and doing what he needs to do to win. He doesn't always have that killer instinct, but he's 12-1 for a reason here. I know Perez is 13-1. The level of competition and everything, just I got Souza here, and I would say like I'm curious about what the over looks like for this fight, because if it's a plus number, I would put it on it. as well, because I could just see Souza making this a little bit of a snoozer. That was good.
Yeah, it's a great fight. I mean, Perez 13-1 at 26, entire
Mhm.
career in combate, and has a karate combat fight as well. And he's pretty quick. I think he has pretty decent hands. I like the way he goes to the body. I think his grappling's pretty decent, and looks like he's able to get fights to the ground and finish them when he gets there. And on the other side, you have Souza. He's 12-1, and he's known for being the only man to defeat Mauricio Huffy, which is a win that is aging like fine wine now. And Souza was the lightweight champ in SFT. He had a win on PFL Challenger Series. He had 2 wins on CFFC. Knocked out Tim Wild on one of the post PFL merger Bellator events. It was a really great knockout. And you mentioned lost to Archie Colgan on another one of those, and there's no shame in that loss. Archie Colgan's very good. He's a little bit of a one trick pony in my opinion, but he's very good at his one trick. But he's not really like a dangerous fighter. He's probably not going to sub you. He's probably not going to knock you out. Souza seems quick, athletic, well rounded, and pretty much good at everything, I'd say. And I think he's a little bit more measured than Perez. He's got nice hands when he lets them go. He's kind of a Muay Thai style fighter, a little bit low volume. And, the point that you made about his last LFA fight, I think is salient, where you said that he just kind of did what he needed to do to win. And he kind of strikes me as that kind of a fighter. He doesn't really do a whole lot more than what is needed a lot of times. Which is good and bad. And, I think both of these guys at the end of the day are pretty damn good. But yeah, I think Souza, just better experience. I think he's a little bit more, I think his process is just a little bit better, to, use an MMA cliche there. So I'm going with the Souza side. I'm not crazy about this price though.
No, I mean, it's 2025 MMA line, so complaining about prices is insane anyways at this point. But yeah, both on Souza, I just feel like there's a reason that he's going to have to go through the Contender Series a few times. I have a feeling. But all right, we'll move on to the next fight here. 205, Alec Lorenz, we talked about him a little bit earlier, facing the Hunter Yakayev, Abdul Rahman Yakayev, Hunter here. Yeah, this is what appears to be a little bit of a sacrifice here. Yakayev, a very good wrestler, kind of typical, fighter from this section of the, world, but the Turkish fighter, instead of being, completely dependent on one style with the wrestling or the, the striking, which I feel like a lot of fighters from this area are, he does a pretty good job of all the above so far, it seems. He's, does a good job of mixing it up. Mostly, with Alec Lorenz, he's been in there with a lot of, familiar fighters here. He's, been over in LFA for a while now. He's typically, also, a striker will mix in the wrestling as well. He, began the downfall of Ben Parrish, which, is always going to be unfortunate. Ben Parrish now 7-6, I believe. So, it's really not going well for Big Tuna. Alec Lorenz was knocked out by Darian Abbey in his one lone loss as a pro there, and he was knocked out pretty early on in that fight. Didn't look all that great, but otherwise he's been pretty dominant. He's expected to come in here. This is lined for him to come in and get absolutely steamrolled by Yakayev. I don't know. Yakayev is pretty good. I'm not sure about, with if he's going to be able to cover him minus 1,000. It's been a while since he's been in there. He was over in ours, so good organization. I don't think Lorenz is pure ass, so I'm kind of confused about a plus whatever it is, plus 650 or whatever it is at this point, but plus 600. But I'm just going to watch, but I'm kind of curious to see how good this Hunter guy is over first fight in the U.S. and everything like that, and almost a minus 1,100 favorite in the Contender Series.
Yeah, so Lorenz, 6-1, 4-0 in LFA. He's an MMA lab guy. You'll notice with him, he kind of gets hit down the pipe a fair bit. I really didn't like that fight that he had against Ryan Parker. He got beaten up in round one in that one, not just lost the round, like he got beaten up. And he did have a rally with like 30 seconds left in the round, but don't be fooled. He's a decent grappler. Yakayev is from Chechnya, Russia, representing Turkey, fighting out of Germany. He's covering a lot of bases internationally with the geography there. He's a light heavyweight champ in Aries, and he's 24 years old. And I don't know. I mean, I guess to keep it short, I mean, I think he's a superior grappler to Lorenz. I'm not so sure he isn't a superior striker as well. I think he's the better fighter. I think he can win on the feet. I think he can win in the grappling as well. So I think Yakayev wins this fight, but it's priced at an unplayable line.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not much more to say there. All right, we'll move on from that one. Moving on to the co, I should say. Marcio Barbosa, Tico Toe, taking on the nomad Damian Wilson of Cage Warriors California fame. I couldn't believe Damian Wilson was getting into this situation after a loss to John D'Souza. He's gone on to win against Brandon Carrillo of 3-2. Ryan Lilly finished him with knees, and Leandro Carmago finished both of them with knees. His last two opponents, not really too impressive, and I'll keep it short. I don't really like Damian Wilson. Marcio Barbosa, very exciting fighter, very much a pure striker, and last three all finishes in the first round there over very good opponents as well. His fight with Gabriel Santos ended violently there in the second round. I feel like so far this season of the Contender Series has been like, who's lost to Gabriel Santos? Let's get them on the show, because that's like the third or fourth Brazilian guy who's lost to Gabriel Santos. They were like, besides Gabriel Santos, this guy's beating everybody. He's looking awesome. How good is Gabriel Santos? We really need to remember that. I mean, Gabriel Santos, split decision against Lerone Murphy, won that fight in my opinion. But anyways, back to this fight. Marcio Barbosa is going to knock out Damian Wilson, in my opinion. Damian Wilson's not the quickest of foot here. He's been knocked out before by Tobias Harila, who will probably get a shot in the Contender Series before this season is over. Let's be honest. I just can't. I can't believe Damian Wilson is here. And if Damian Wilson gets signed to the UFC, it's just one of the lower points in the organization's history, probably since Reebok. What are your thoughts, Lucky?
Yeah, so Barbosa comes in here at 16-2. He's got a great record. His last four fights were on LFA. He was 3-1. 3 straight knockouts in the first round now coming in here. And, he's got good feints. He's quick. He's, a fast twitch athlete. He's got good power, good hand speed, mixes it up to the body. I liked him when I watched him on tape. Damon Wilson out of California by way of Illinois. He's an Alliance MMA guy out in California, I believe. And, he's a Cage Warriors guy, but mostly the U.S. shows, which honestly is kind of like a separate promotion because, they just get guys that are usually California guys from out west to fight on those cards. So it's not really like he's, fighting the typical Cage Warrior. Not that they're bad, but it's just kind of like a separate roster. The only real recognizable like Cage Warriors guy that he's fought really probably is Tobias Harila. That you just talked about. So yeah, he's coming in this fight on the 3-fight win streak. The last 2 were knockouts. Comes from a wrestling background, but he's pretty comfortable on the feet. He does stand pretty tall when he's out there. And I don't really have a ton to add to what you said. Really, I think Barbosa is better than him, and that's it. I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I think it, lined at minus 375. Put him and Souza together, I really do think they're covering their price, but that's just my opinion. I don't think Damian Wilson should be here at all. So Barbosa losing this one would be pretty bad. 5 years younger Barbosa is as well. The speed difference between these two is going to be really, I think, a huge difference as well. Like Damon should not be here. So we'll see. But yeah, Barbosa should take that one, I think, pretty clearly. Somehow this is the main event. Trent the Terminator Miller versus Ryan Problema Gondra. Ryan Gondra, went back and watched his tape. He kind of, reminds me of Neiman Santana from a few weeks ago. Just another guy who just kind of moves forward like a car wreck, throws a lot of hooks until one, lands, hopefully. And if it lands on him first, he's like, oh, well, then I'll get knocked out. He's kill or be killed. Hasn't faced a great level of competition at all. The guy he faced in the LFA prelims, Vladimir Calvo, was, pretty highly touted prospect, was favored to beat him, pretty athletic guy, and, knocked him out inside of 3 minutes. So, that was a, very impressive fight. With Trent, he hasn't fought since 2024. Trent Miller, Extreme Couture guy, beat a 7-9 Abdullah Gaziev, who's gone and fought and lost to a bunch of people. It took him till the third round. That's kind of a little bit of a red flag compared to a lot of people. Each time Trent Miller has taken a slight step up, or if you want to call Buddy Wallace to step up, he got face cranked by him. I don't like that. Got submitted by Mike Jones. Gondra does have some submissions, in his career, but typically, I think this fight is just going to be two of them kind of going forward, throwing down. Trent Miller, I'm not super impressed with him. I'm kind of, confused. He's, scheduled the fight with Jake Woodley at times. It's just like, it's like his schedule is kind of all over the place a little bit as well. Seems like he was put into somewhat short notice. I'm not sure why Trent Miller's in this spot other than he get knocked out by Ryan Gondra and they get a few more Brazilians on their roster. It just seems like this is a setup for Gondra, but I'm not sure why.
Well, I think the reason why is that it was supposed to be Vitor Costa, and then he couldn't make it, so they were like, just grab somebody from Extreme Couture to get in here as soon as possible.
That's what it is.
Yeah, Gondra won his last two fights on LFA by knockout. I didn't really think he had awesome boxing on tape, but he does have power, likes to kick the legs at range. In the original matchup, I thought he was going to get crowded by Vitor Costa, and Costa would have been able to get off on his boxing a bit. But, now it's a new matchup and Trent Miller. And, I feel badly because I feel like every fight I keep saying, like, I don't have too much to say about this one. But, I don't know.
It is.
What can you really say here, right? Like, Trent Miller is from Extreme Couture. They grabbed him here on short notice. He had a fight scheduled for the 22nd on LFA, for the 23rd on Tough Enough, and now he's fighting on the 26th at Dana White's Contender Series. So, what I can say about him, he's a big, strong guy. He's got a heavy right hand. I think that about covers it. I'm not really thrilled about either one of these guys. I was not going to pick Gondra to win the original matchup, but, I do think he's better than Trent Miller. So, yeah, I'm not thrilled about this fight, to be honest with you. No. But, kind of closing thoughts on the card. I do think there are some decent fighters on this card, right? I think Yukayev is very good. I think Barbosa is good. I think both Perez and Souza are good. So there are some good fighters on this card. But this main event doesn't contain any of them, in my opinion.
No, and you're paying for Gondra minus 375. I don't care if it's even Trent Miller. I'm not paying that price.
Oh, never.
Like
he's not that type of a guy
and he's not that. Yeah, it's like if Trent Miller wins this fight, it doesn't shock me at all. And the way Trent Miller wins is by, it's like you said, he had a good right hand. He does have a finish by right hand. So you only have a finish by right hand if you have a good right hand. Not even right cross, not right strikes, nothing. Right hand finish. And I watched that fight. It was a right hand finish. Like the guy stopped fighting. So yeah, overall, we're both on Darian Abbey here. Plus 350 number for Lucky over there. I'm still, at plus 220. I'm probably gonna play it. I've got to be honest with you. With Manuel Souza, I am parlaying him with Barboza. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. It's just short of even money, but I don't want to really add Gondra and risk being very upset at a shitty fight costing me a ticket. So I'm just going to leave it at those two with Souza and Barboza. Yakev should get done against Lorenz, but, again, that's, a tough number to obviously do much with. And then Gondra should get done against Trent Miller, but Trent Miller winning wouldn't be a shock. Any thoughts before we take off, Lucky? Other than like the no thoughts really on the fights, because that's kind of what they deserve.
Yeah, not too much, man. I kind of gave my little wrap up earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just say you can follow me on Twitter. The @'s right there if you guys want. And yeah, other than that, I got nothing to promote.
Yep. All right. That's going to do it for this week's episode. There is no UFC this weekend. So go enjoy your weekend, everybody, and we will be back next week. We'll see which day we cover week 4 of the Contender series, with it being Labor Day next Monday. So stay tuned. All right. Peace out, everybody.